Someone you trusted once made you question your own memory. You remembered something clearly, a conversation, a promise, an event. They looked you in the eye and said, "That never happened." And for a moment, just a moment, you wondered if they were right. That moment, that single crack in your confidence, that's where gaslighting begins. You didn't imagine it. But by the time gaslighting is working, really working, you won't be sure of that anymore. This isn't about occasional misunderstandings. This isn't about forgetting. This is a deliberate, calculated process of making another person distrust their own mind. It happens in relationships, in families, in workplaces, and it's happening to people right now who have no idea what's being done to them. The reason most people never recognize it? Because it doesn't start with a lie. It starts with a question. Are you sure that's what happened? You've been so stressed lately. I'm worried about you. You keep misremembering things. Slow, patient, invisible. By the time the victim realizes something is wrong, they've already started doubting themselves, not the person doing it to them. That's the architecture of gaslighting. The term comes from a 1944 film called Gaslight. A husband, methodically, coldly, manipulates his wife into believing she's losing her mind. He dims the gas-powered lights in their home, then denies the lights changed at all. He hides objects and tells her she moved them. He isolates her from anyone who might confirm her reality. The goal isn't to win an argument. The goal is to make her incapable of trusting herself. Here's what's happening in the brain. Human memory is not a recording device. It's reconstructive. Every time you recall something, you rebuild it slightly differently based on your current emotional state, new information, and what people around you confirm or deny. Gaslighters exploit this. When someone you trust, someone with emotional authority over you, consistently contradicts your memory, your brain faces a conflict. And the brain, wired for social survival, begins to defer to the external source. This is called memory conformity, a well-documented phenomenon in cognitive psychology. Studies show that people will alter their memory of events when an authority figure or trusted person presents a conflicting account. Gaslighting weaponizes this mechanism, deliberately, repeatedly, and it follows a predictable pattern, 4 stages that move the target from confusion to complete dependence. Stage 1. Disbelief. The target notices something is off. The manipulator's account doesn't match reality, but they assume it's a mistake. Stage 2. Defense. The target begins defending their own memory. But this is exactly what the manipulator wants. Every defense gets reframed as paranoia or insecurity. Stage 3. Depression. The target, exhausted from defending reality, begins to withdraw. They start second-guessing everything. Confidence collapses. Stage 4. Dependence. The target now relies on the manipulator to interpret reality for them. They ask, "Did I overreact? Was I wrong?" The manipulator becomes the authority on what is real. This is not an accident. This is the destination. But here's where it gets darker. Most gaslighting victims don't leave when they finally understand what's happening. And the reason why reveals something deeply unsettling about the human mind. Let's look at how this plays out in 3 very different contexts. In intimate relationships, the most documented setting, a partner begins small, dismissing emotions, reframing arguments as the victim's fault. Over months, the language shifts. "You're too sensitive. You always do this. Everyone agrees with me. Ask them." That third-party appeal is particularly effective. Suddenly the manipulator is quoting friends, family, co-workers. The victim feels surrounded, outnumbered by a reality they can no longer verify. Clinical psychologist Dr. Robin Stern, who wrote The Gaslight Effect, describes patients who had been in gaslighting relationships for years before seeking help, not because they didn't feel something was wrong, but because they believed the wrongness was inside them. Not inside the relationship, inside themselves. In the workplace, a manager takes credit for an employee's idea in a meeting. When the employee raises it later, the manager says, "That was always the team's concept. I'm concerned you're having trouble remembering things accurately." The employee, now doubting themselves professionally, becomes easier to control and more dependent on the manager's approval. Organizational psychologists have documented this as a deliberate tool of institutional control. In families, perhaps the most damaging of all, a parent who consistently denies a child's emotional experience, "You're not scared. You weren't hurt. You're exaggerating," doesn't just create a confused child. They create an adult who doesn't know how to trust their own feelings, who enters every future relationship already primed to defer to someone else's version of reality. The mechanism is identical. Only the power dynamic differs. What I'm about to tell you changes everything about how we think about gaslighting. The question isn't just, how do you recognize it? The real question is, why is it so hard to leave, even when you do recognize it? Here's what most videos don't tell you. By the time a person fully recognizes they've been gaslit, they have a problem that goes beyond the relationship itself. They no longer trust their own judgment, and that includes their judgment about leaving. What if I'm wrong about this too? What if I'm the problem? What if I destroy everything and it turns out I misread it? This is the final trap. The victim now gaslights themselves. Psychologists call this internalized self-doubt, and it can persist long after the relationship ends. Studies on survivors of narcissistic abuse show elevated rates of anxiety, hypervigilance, and difficulty making decisions independently, symptoms that mirror complex PTSD. This is why gaslighting isn't just manipulation. It's identity erosion. And there's one more layer: intermittent reinforcement. Gaslighters are rarely cruel all the time. Between the reality distortions, there are moments of warmth, validation, even apology. The brain, starved of certainty, clings to these moments as proof that the good version of this person is the real one. It isn't. The warmth is part of the system. The cycle of confusion and relief creates a trauma bond that functions like addiction. The neurological pattern is nearly identical. Dopamine suppression during the cold phase, a dopamine spike during the warm phase. The victim's brain begins to associate the manipulator with survival itself. This is why people don't just leave. This is why they defend their abuser and return after ending things. It's not weakness, it's neuroscience. So, what do you actually do? 1. Document reality. Keep a private written record, dated, factual. Not to prove anything to them, to anchor yourself when your memory is being attacked. 2. Name the pattern, not the incident. 1 contradiction is an argument. 5 contradictions over 3 months is a pattern. Step back far enough to see it. 3. Triangulate with trusted outside sources. Hearing, "No, that's not normal" from someone outside can be the first crack of clarity. 4. Trust physical evidence over verbal accounts. If you have a text, an email, a voicemail, trust it. Gaslighting lives in the gap between what was said and what can be proven. Close that gap. 5. Recognize that confusion itself is data. If you regularly feel disoriented or unsure of your own memory around a specific person, that feeling is telling you something. Healthy relationships don't make you doubt your sanity. The goal is not to win against the gaslighter. The goal is to rebuild your relationship with your own mind. Gaslighting works because it's invisible until it isn't. Now you know what it looks like from the inside. The stages, the neuroscience, the trap that keeps people stuck even after they understand what's happening. Most people will go their entire lives never understanding why they feel so uncertain around someone they love. You're not one of those people anymore. Subscribe to Inside the Dark Mind, because the next video goes even deeper. And if someone in your life came to mind while you watched this, you already know what to do with that.